Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to BiblioTech on Air. I'm Rosanna, and today we have a special guest for today's episode. Joining us is our Collections and Acquisitions Librarian for BiblioTech, Hayley Goldsmith. Thanks for joining us, Hayley.
Hi. Yeah, of course.
So, just the usual spiel. We're going to ask you a couple questions, find out what it takes to be a Collections and Acquisitions Librarian, as well as what exactly all of that entails. So let's go ahead and get right into it.
Sounds good.
So can you share what you were doing before BiblioTech, and how did you first learn about the library?
So I was actually working at the auditor's office, Bexar County Auditor's Office, and I had been working in accounting probably for about 10, 12 years, something like that. And I was, I really enjoyed it, but it was not what I got my degrees in, and it was kind of just a way to pay the bills. And I wanted to go to graduate school, but I needed a break.
Fair.
So that's what I was doing, and I really liked the stability of the county. So I was there, and that was actually, I was there when I had started to go back to graduate school for library science. And then BiblioTech happened to just move onto the same floor and down the hall.
Convenient.
Exactly. So at one point they came over, I knew them, and they were talking to me and they were like, do you have anybody like that that may be looking for a job in BiblioTech and like for doing like accounting and things like that, and like office stuff? And I was like, oh, I know somebody. Me. Yeah. And so it kind of just worked out perfect. It was like all the stars kind of aligned. And so at that point, Laura had written a letter of recommendation. You get those. And like I said, I had met her when she moved onto the floor and stuff. So I got a letter because I was like, perfect, a librarian and a director. That'd be great. So when I applied to graduate school. So it just, like I said, everything just kind of the stars aligned. Everything fell into place. It's kind of perfect. And so, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, you're not kidding. Everything clicked perfectly for you.
Yeah, I couldn't be luckier. So, and it was a really great opportunity at the auditors. So like it was a really bittersweet leaving. And so it was really easy, right? Like I wasn't going too far out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because it was just down the hall. So
you could still, walk by the offices, be like, hey guys.
Yeah. So I still do. So that we're
cool.
still there. Yeah.
Still have buddies down there and stuff, huh?
I know. It'll be 10 years this year at the county.
Oh my God. So you mentioned you were already in school for library science, which again helped everything click into place. So you, I guess, always intended to work in a library. What was that educational journey like? What schools did you attend? How many years? What was that, that whole path?
Yeah. So I actually, my first job was at a library when I was like 17. And so I was like, I thought I would just get to read books, and that was not the case. But I was like, oh, once I got into it, I realized like what it entailed, and I learned that I loved it. And so then I was like, okay, well, how do I do this professionally? Like, how do I go about that? I talked to different people and librarians. I would contact them and like research it. And they were like, oh, well, you have to have a master's. And I was like, okay, but what do I do before the master's? Like, how do I get there?
Right.
And they're like, oh, find another passion. Go to school and pursue that. I was like, but this is the passion. So I kind of felt like unmoored and kind of like at a loss, but it was so
that's
good.
Not helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, so what do I do for the next 4 years? And I did. I came to UTSA. I'm from East Texas, and it felt like exotic compared to where I lived.
Was it like more of a small kind of town?
Yes, it was like
metropolitan San Antonio.
Yeah, it was like 2,000 people, and it wasn't like a suburb. It was out in the middle of nowhere. And so, yeah, I was like, they have tacos and they have other people that I don't know and haven't known for my whole life and know everything about me. So that'll be nice. And I think it was as far as I could go without going out of state, because I couldn't pay for out of state. And so I was like, sweet. Perfect. Let's go there. Or El Paso, but I wasn't going to go to El Paso personally. I was like, San Antonio's got more. They got more going on. So I came here, and it was really exciting. So yeah, I found other passions. I tried architecture for a while. not
Oh,
my
that's
thing.
cool.
Yeah, you had to be creative, and I'm not. So I didn't really do so great at that. And then I kind of fell into, just took a lot of electives. I ended up in psychology, which I just enjoyed.
Mhm.
And then I was taking more electives, because you just take them to kind of like fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
And I took a women's studies class and I loved it. And so then I ended up double majoring. Well, it started, I was like, I'll just take a couple of electives in women's studies. It'll be fun. And then it was like, oh, well, I've taken quite a few. I'll just minor.
Mhm.
And then it was like, okay, well, I took a lot. I guess I'll just be double majoring now. Might as well.
I guess. That's kind of cool, though.
Yeah. And so I knew I was never going to do anything with those, though. And that was at the same time I was like working in accounting during like to school to pay for things like life. And so, yeah, like that's where I ended up. And it was a great experience. And I really loved it because they were very similar in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
You're dealing with like a lot of like people and their with the things they have to share with you personally, and how to like, I don't know, just how to like, I guess, approach people in a more intimate way, like, and be understanding and have like a lot of, I don't know, empathy for others. And,
Right.
but psychology likes to quantify it. It's more of like it's a science, right? And they're trying to treat people and help people. And in women's studies, it was a lot more like about sensitivity because, recognizing who you're talking to, whether it's women or children or even men, about really sensitive subjects that, might be like I said, really personal or whatever. So yeah, so they were very similar, but also very different and approached the same topics in very different ways. And I really loved it because like women's study was a lot of fun because it was relatively new at UTSA. I don't know about it now, but at the time, they didn't have it like fully fleshed out. So you could to build up your degree, you could take any class that you wanted, as long as you could like argue for its benefit to your graduate, like,
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I was like, I got to take biology classes and history classes, like upper division ones. And so I was like, this is a lot of fun. And I was like, I guess I did find other passions. And I never really knew I had. So
you pretty much stayed consistently busy your whole, school life, then going into BiblioTech, well, Bear County, and then going into BiblioTech.
Yeah, I like to stay busy. Yeah.
But like you said, you did mention burnout earlier, and it's important to, give yourself little breaks in between because it doesn't do you any good.
No, and I feel like at a lot of the time it was like I was a boulder rolling down a hill. At some point it was just a lot of momentum that was keeping me going and a lot of coffee. And so I remember after, like, once I finally finished, right, it was during quarantine. We were working from home. I had taken my kids out of like daycare, and so they were at home with me, and so I was going to school, working, taking care of my kids, and I was a single mom at the time. And I remember I finally finished, and I was like, oh man, I got this. I can keep going. I could go get my PhD. What about that? Or a second master's. I have all the energy.
Hubris.
I think it was like, I think I was just so hyped up. And I'd been on such a, like I said, this momentum that I was like, I could just keep going. I felt like, and I was like, everybody was like, okay, why don't you step back? Why don't you take a couple of weeks off and then rethink this then? And I was like, oh, okay.
So can you explain a little bit about what a collections and acquisition librarian does, since probably not a lot of people are quite aware of what it entails? It's not just buying material for the library. It's especially for a digital library, it entails so much more. What's something unique about this role that people might not like really know?
So for I'm just gonna say that like any kind of library, like any librarian at most libraries, all their jobs are going to be unique, right? It's like where for us, especially at smaller libraries, a lot of it's, if there's a hat and it's available, wear it, So we wear a lot of them. And so, yeah, collections and acquisitions for us, it is buying the books, but it's also, I manage the platforms, and I like our digital learning platforms and things of that nature. I look at other libraries, see what they're up to kind of see, like, are they offering something? Do we have a gap in what we're offering to our patrons that should be filled, or looking at our community, is there something specific to our community that we could bridge for them, like the hotspots, or and then so those are the things I like you said, buying the content but managing it as well, whether it's an online thing or a physical item. And so from there, like it's just a lot of that. We look at, like I said, well, what is that? We look at other libraries, see what they're doing. We look at our community, but we also just anything new on the horizon. And we all are kind of here at BiblioTech obligated to kind of do that, right? Like hopefully everybody feels like they are,
Right.
It's open to them, but looking for new opportunities out there that we could bring to this library, not just that are cool, but that really would like round out our patrons' experience here. So
Right, because everyone's going to be looking for a little different something. So if there's something that resonates with, little group over here.
exactly. And so when I buy content, I keep very similar thoughts in mind. Like, here are like the popular books, or here's what everybody's talking about on Book Talk, or here's, I weigh all of those things. I look at a lot of that, but I'm also like, what's our community looking at? What is our community needing? And what, what are they reading, or something of that nature? So that's really kind of, yeah.
That's a really neat point that you brought up. I've never really thought about that, because that's something, we're all, I would say a good portion of us are probably chronically online, and we always see like what books are trending, what's hot, what people are like saying, you need to read this, this is the most amazing book, which we know it's not the case. But it's not just important to focus on that. The primary service is, what would the community enjoy? And I feel like that's personally something that does get glossed over a bit.
Yeah. So I use a lot of stats and other things like that. I look at from our catalog, what are actually people reading? And I weigh a lot of that in. Like if I'm looking at a series and a new book is coming out and I'm like, oh, well, this is really popular. People really like it, except for our community isn't checking it out. Like we have maybe the last one in the series and nobody checked it out. I might not invest in that particular book because, maybe 2 people checked it out or something like that. And it just, I'm like, with a certain amount of funds, you have to be mindful and, purchase what people are reading. Also, I like to always think about and this goes back into just collections, I suppose, but every library I think would love to curate their library with the next great American novel, and have all these wonderful things. But what's important is what your community is reading.
Right.
And what's popular. A little bit of both is really kind of the wiser choice in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. And then people can even put in their requests too. So that kind of gives you a touch of okay, well, maybe
this is what people want to read.
Yeah. So it's at least that part, I guess, kind of makes it a little easier, right? When people put in the request and you're just okay, gotcha.
Exactly. And, and if I want to make myself feel really good that day, I look at the books and maybe something we've recently purchased, and I'll look at them and, all the ones that are circulating. I'm like, I bought you that. You're welcome.
A little, self-pat on the back. I love that. So with the vast array of resources available at BiblioTech, it must be challenging to keep everything up to date and ensure that patrons are always aware of, what we offer. Because like you mentioned, some people might just know us for hotspots, others might just know us for Hoopla or Cloud Library, etc. So how do you manage that? And what criteria do you use when selecting new resources? Which, again, you did already touch on a little bit.
What criteria we use? Honestly, we just look at the community. Is it feasible? Do they work with libraries? Does it Masterclass is one that when we got it, they hadn't worked with libraries, but we were okay, well, this is something that's really interesting. It's new, and there is a demand. The people are interested in it.
There was a big buzz around it when we were getting it.
Yeah, and so with all of that, it made it a good choice for onboarding a new resource. But with they hadn't worked with a library before, so there was no authentication process that we could use. There was no back end for administrators. There was no way to gauge statistics, and statistics are what we use to kind of evaluate platforms, whether it's books or any of our other learning platforms, for their effectiveness. Like, are they being used? Or is it like does it have value here? And so they weren't able to provide any of that. Now they have grown. They have worked with a lot more libraries since, and so they do have a back end, and they do provide stats now. But we had to find workarounds for things like authentication and stuff like that, and we have, and so it's like, that's how we did it. And it was a really fun experience, because it opened the door to like other like interplay learning, like other learning experience, or I keep saying learning, but they don't have to be learning. They can just be, personal development or anything like that. But any other platform that we find ourselves coming across that could be valuable to us. And it was like, okay, well, we can make this work. We really could. And so, yeah, like we've been able to do that. And, sometimes they don't all work out. Like we'll take them on and we don't see as much an interest as we would maybe like. And so, that's the parting of ways at that point. Or maybe we try, and once we evaluate, which we do every year, we evaluate it and we decide, we're going to try another year. We're going to try and push it a little bit more, or we'll try and encourage the branches to maybe build some programming around it, find some really interesting ways to kind of promote it in that way, so that like maybe it's just missing its mark, right? Maybe like we know that there are the people out there that could really use this, and we're just not reaching them.
Right, they might not know about it.
Exactly. So outreach really takes they really take the reins on that, the branches, because y'all are the ones that interact with the community the most. And so, yeah, like I think that those are the best ways that we get about educating our patrons on it. And my interaction largely is with them digitally. Because I always working in a library when I was young, I got to work with them, out front and doing all of that. And I loved it. And I was like, am I missing that now? In this position, I don't get to see them as much. But I was like, no, because I like I said, I look at the books and I'm like, oh yes, somebody's reading that. I look at the resources and people are using it. And I also do the BiblioTech info emails. That's me. And so I'm like, I'm talking to them.
Which, by the way, if y'all want to sign up for that email, it is on our website.
Y'all have any questions? So yeah, it's just a lot of that.
Seeing as how we're always getting new resources, again, Financial Fit being a fairly recent one, are there any that you personally would love to see BiblioTech acquire in the future? Or is there anything that you can kind of hint at that might be coming soon?
Anything coming soon? Ooh, that's a good question. At this point,
if the NDA doesn't let you, then
at this point, maybe something for tutoring. That would be something. I think there is a gap for it, and we would love to fill it. And so, yeah, that's kind of probably on the horizon. So.
Funny enough you say that. We do have parents coming in often like, hey, do y'all have any things for kids to kind of practice school materials on? Because we have quite a few kids who come in who are homeschooled, and parents look for that additional help, support. Yeah.
And anybody could use that. Parents, and whether they're homeschooling or parents like my own child who was struggling in school. I'm not a teacher. I'm like, read, it's on the page. Use your eyes. I don't know how to help you with this. And so, yeah, not that I acquire resources based on my own need or anything like that, but, I see the value in it, and that one from personal. But, and I think what we were looking at would largely help kids of all ages, in school. And it might even extend to older, adults. And because some people are going to college or getting ready to go to college.
And also with GED testing that some of our branches do.
Exactly. And, maybe even career prep, so getting people not just from a job, but to a career.
So as a librarian, you would presumably do a lot of reading.
Yes.
So do you have a favorite genre or a favorite author, and what specifically draws you to that genre or that author's works?
So my favorite genre is horror.
Nice.
I do like high fantasy. more Game of Thrones high fantasy, you know, that kind of stuff. But I do been like in really just absorbed with horror as of late. And Stephen Graham Jones is an author I really enjoy. Grady Hendrix is another one. He writes more like satirical horror. And right now I'm actually reading a dark comedy horror, and I'm really enjoying it. I like horror because I guess kind of like dystopian novels, they can take oftentimes, well, I mean, I guess maybe not like The Exorcist or something, but like they take your society and they can put this like lens on like something that might be occurring in the society that is like, oh, how to say it? So like a dystopian novel, they take, they put like a magnifying glass on an issue being experienced by, you know, your society and magnify it to like, you know, see how like the repercussions of that one thing, that one issue expounded over years or in a society, right? Like you got, what is it? Handmaid's Tale is a good example of that. Like, well, I guess it. And so I really like stuff like that. And so in a lot of the horror, they can do similar things. And also, you know, I don't know why. It's like riding a roller coaster, I guess. Like it can be very thrilling, and then I'm like, okay, I can go back to real life now. So there's a lot of different reasons for me. Maybe I just like being scared. I don't know. Maybe I'm like maybe I'm just over analyzing it, and I just like to be scared. I like horror movies. I love spooky season and all that. Season. I know, it's almost fall.
Have you seen that the stores have already started Halloween collections like Michael's, Joann's? Oh, it's the best.
Yes, and I'm so excited. I'm like, I have to stop myself. I'm like, you don't need these things.
Adult money. We can't have adult money.
Well, I got kids. They take all the money.
Oh, okay. Well, there
but,
you
know, but yeah. So like, and that's the only season I actually decorate my house for. But yeah, I guess like in theory, some of them do that, and I really enjoy that. And then the dark comedy is just, I guess it's taking that horrific, you know, like energy and that angstiness that comes with it, and then smoothing it out with a little comedy. I love that. So right now I'm reading The Witchstone, and I'm really enjoying it because it does those things. And I'm like, ooh, okay. It's a lot of fun.
Like a little cathartic in a way, I guess.
I guess.
I don't know. We're not going to get too deep into it.
Yeah, this isn't therapy.
We can turn it into therapy, but let's not do that. So that brings us to pretty much the end of the episode.
All right.
Again, Hayley, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come on BiblioTech on Air. It was great having you.
Yeah, it was great being here. This was not as terrifying as I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
If anyone wants to reach you, they can always find your info on our website, bearbibliotech.org. If hearing about all of what we offer makes you want to register for a library card, go register at any one of our branches or at bearbibliotech.org.
Yeah, we have a BiblioTech info at bear.org for any questions you might have.